Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out ULTRACORE, the Vita port that I never thought that we'd get. Because when they said that ULTRACORE would be out on like the 15th of July and the Vita port would follow sometime later, I honestly thought that meant it was cancelled. But no, it showed up the very next week. So, one thing that is a little bit weird about ULTRACORE that I want to point out just while we're in the menus and able to talk about it, the only option that you've got to change is the sound. And the sound, it can be one of like 5 things. It can be only the sound effects, only the FM soundtrack, only the CD soundtrack, or the sound effects with the FM or the CD soundtrack, which was an old thing to do with these games, because the computers they were programmed for usually couldn't support sound effects and music at once, which was always a little bit odd, but those were just limitations you had to work with. But the weird thing is, this game doesn't save anything, which is really bizarre, because you'd think they would really want to, especially with the fact that, you know, you're on the Vita, you're on a modern system, you can do that. You've got these passwords, which are 20 fucking characters long and really hard to put in. And you've also got high scores, but the high scores don't actually save, so every time you close the game, the high scores go away. Turns out this game does keep save data. As to what, I don't have a fucking clue, because seriously, it doesn't save anything. I do not know what it is trying to save, but it does not save a damn thing, as far as I can tell, but oh well. So, let's get to talking about it. This is a European-style run-and-gun platformer from the 90s by a company known as Digital Illusions. For those of you who don't know your gaming history, they are now known as DICE, who are familiar for their Battlefield series and Mirror's Edge, although Mirror's Edge didn't exactly do too well recently, but then again, Battlefield didn't do well so recently either, so it's not like it matters, does it? So, this is an old school European platformer, and when you hear that, if you're in the know about these sorts of things, you'll think to yourself, oh no, it's going to be one of those ultra hard, absolutely ridiculous on the difficulty games that kills you as soon as you take a single step in the wrong direction. No, this game is not like that. It does carry over a lot of European platformer sensibilities, but it is a little bit light on some of the punishments. I say some. Not enough, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, but we'll get to that. So, the basic controls are as follows. You got the D-pad or the analog stick to move you around, the X button to jump, and you can jump at varying heights, and you've got the square button, which lets you fire. Now, when you fire, you will stand in place if you're not moving. So you'll be able to stand in place and use the directional pad or the analog stick to aim in any direction so that you can fire in any direction. Although it's not really any direction, it's more like you've got like 8 or maybe even 12 or 16 different directions you can fire in, and you're just tweaking the direction that you're firing with the up and down buttons. But if you fire while you're moving, you will lock in the direction that you're moving and you'll be able to move to the left and right without changing your firing angle. So if you're running towards danger and think, oh crap, I need to get out of here, you can just hold the button and just back strafe away, firing away at the direction that you please. This is how the game was meant to be played. This is how the game was originally designed, because it was designed in the 1990s. I believe this was supposed to come out for the Genesis at one point. And I'm assuming it was also supposed to come out for a regular, like, say, a 16-bit computer, I'm going to say, because this definitely doesn't look like it was for one of the 8-bit computers, a la the Commodore 64. But it was probably meant for, one of them, and it was probably also meant for the Genesis as well, due to the fact that it's got its weird little firing control setup, where you aim and you fire all with one button. With that said though, they have made an effort to modernize the game a little in the controls department by allowing you to aim and fire in any direction with the right stick. So it basically turns the game into a twin-stick shooter. However, personally I'm not a fan of it because I think it makes the game too easy. The game clearly wasn't designed for it, and it makes the game a bit too simple. A bit too easy to be able to just fire back and forth in both directions without even thinking about it. A bit too easy to take out gigantic swarms of enemies heading towards you instead of needing to strategically plan out what weapon you need to use, because Well, some of the weapons in this game. You get multiple weapons, you find them in boxes as you go along, and you can swap between them at any time, but the only one that doesn't take ammo is your regular old gun. Your regular old gun, being able to fire in any direction at any time, makes it a fair bit too powerful, because it makes a couple of the extra weapons much more useless than they normally are. The main weapons are a blue ion cannon, which can fire like across the entire screen in no time. The yellow laser beam, which can cover like an entire line, so you've got an easier way to hit people. You've got a rocket launcher, which can do an absolute ton of damage, but it also takes the most health. And you've also got a green split beam that can cover a lot of ground. But if you just got the regular gun able to fire in any direction at any time, the green beam, the green twin beam and the yellow laser, they don't really come into that much handy just because you can cover so much more of the screen that easily. The rockets are always handy, but still. I mainly try to play the game... Excuse me. I mainly try to play the game using the regular fire button with adjusting my aim on the fly afterwards. But there are some points in this video where you'll see me default back to firing in all directions with the right analog stick. The bonus weapons, every weapon except your main weapon requires ammo, which you can find on the field. Also, there are plenty of secrets to go find. You can also find lives and health, of course. You can also find smart bombs, which can be used with the left shoulder button. And the left shoulder button will just clear the entire screen. It'll also do lots of damage to boss monsters, but it won't kill them. You also have jump bound to the right button, the right shoulder button as well. So you're able to go around jumping and then using the right stick to fire and the left stick to aim without having to stop firing, which is a nice touch. Triangle button swaps your weapons, but it swaps them in a very linear order, so you better get used to it. There's no like weapon wheel or anything, which I probably would have appreciated more than your traditional like aim in any direction thing. You've also got plenty of objects you can interact with in the background, and only some of them are highlighted. Notably, the game doesn't come with a manual or tutorial of any kind, so unless you're a little bit experimentative on what you can interact with in the background with the circle button, you won't notice the fact that there are security stations and shops that you can go into. Shops will give you extra health, and if you buy enough extra health, you'll get an extra life. They'll also sell you smart bombs and ammo, which is nice. And you can also pick up pickups for extra time. And, well, that's exactly what it says it is extra time. The levels are big, but they aren't so big as that you're going to be constantly, like, forced down, like, the straight and narrow, because the levels are relatively big with more than a few split paths every now and again for extra resources. So you probably will want to take the time to go and explore, and they won't punish you too heavily for that, just don't dawdle and you'll be fine. You've also got score, which will give you extra lives, but as I said earlier, the game doesn't save your high scores for some reason, so yeah, that's just there for bonus lives, more or less. You do also have the ability to press start to pause, but there's no way back to the main menu, which is a little weird. You have to close and reopen the game for that, so goodbye high scores. And you've also got the ability to press select, and that will scale the game up, but honestly it looks horrid. They've used a scaling filter on it and it just looks really bad. I mean, it's not too noticeable on the Vita screen, but I do it during this video and you'll be able to notice just by looking at the main character how bad the scaling is, and it's better to just keep it in 1x1 because it's nice and crisp. The art itself is quite lovely, and the game has no performance problems whatsoever, so when there's 10 enemies all coming at you, a few different kinds in all sorts of different directions, and you manage to take them all out with a nice smooth 60 frames per second to see all of the sprites of their destruction and the smoke and all that flying everywhere. The game just looks really good. It's very clearly had a talented team behind it, and for those of you who don't know, DICE, also known as Digital Illusions at the time, were a big name in the demo scene. Their individual members all came from the demo scene, which was basically making computers do some really insane shit for their specifications. So they knew how to make a game look good, and ULTRACORE definitely does indeed look really good. The CD audio was also fantastic. It almost feels like you're playing Hotline Miami from time to time. It really is that good of a soundtrack. It's also probably the only reason why the game's 800 meg, because they needed all that room to fit the CD audio in. If that CD audio wasn't there, the game would be like 50 meg. It'd fit on a Genesis cartridge, for God's sake. The actual gameplay itself, though, is actually pretty good. For the most part, I don't really have a problem with it. Oh yeah, you can get weapon upgrades too. I just saw that happen in the video, which basically just makes your weapons stronger. And you need to spread them out amongst all your weapon types because they are individually applied. The gameplay itself, though, is, as I said, really good. The shooting is satisfying. There are a fair few different kinds of enemies, a lot of which will often be placed together, so you need to really think about the way you're approaching firefights. Excuse me. The overall variety of the enemies is pretty good too. There's a ton of them. They all behave in different ways, so you need to be ready for that. And they consistently introduce new enemies as the game goes on. So by stage 4, I was still seeing new enemy types. And, well, that's fine by me. Nothing wrong with consistently having new enemies along for the ride. And there are plenty of secrets to find as well, all over the place. Some of them are obvious, with big, collapsible, obviously destructible walls. Some of them are not so obvious, just literal walls that you just walk into and they vanish to reveal a secret behind them. And they will always have some useful resources behind them for you. All the different weapons are satisfying to use. There isn't a single weapon in this game which isn't useful at some point, which is really, really good. Nothing wrong with that. And the overall movement and platforming, well, I say platforming, but I'll say jumping, not platforming. But the overall movement and jumping of the main character is very smooth and easy to get a hold of. And they have some neat little touches as well, which I really appreciate, because not only is the action smooth, but they've got some weird little things going on, like if you stand too close to an edge, you'll be consistently firing down that edge, and he even has a little bit of a wobbling sprite. It looks ridiculous, but it's a nice touch that you didn't usually see in games like this, and I do like little things like that. And there's a fair few of those, like how you have to use the springboard mats in order to get yourself a little bit extra jump height, and how you can bounce on enemies' heads without taking damage in order to stay in the air and access other secret areas. Just little touches like that that make the gameplay feel pretty fleshed out. There is, however, one bit of difficulty that gets inherited from its ilk, which is to say European hardcore platformers from the 8-bit and 16-bit eras, and that is instant death pits. Huge instant death pits that will immediately take away a life. You have 5 lives per continue and 3 continues. There are extra lives hidden all over the place, so someone who plays the game enough will start to remember where all the lives are and will be able to just go pick them up on the way. But as someone just starting out, those 15 lives are not going to get you through the game, and it's mainly because of the platforming challenges, because they can be overly precise. One of them is even bugged. There's this one where you have to jump across these spinning platforms that I've actually got in this video here on stage 3. And if you stand up too early in this particular segment, you'll fall right through the platform. This is almost consistent. I had it happen to me so many times that I ended up using all my continues the first time I tried to get through the stage. Thankfully, if you write down that password you get at the end of every stage, you can still come back and play from where you left off, but you're not going to get those continues back that you used before you got to the password. So, you know, that's a thing. But yeah, there are more platforming challenges which are a bit of a dick. There are a fair few pits in the game that will just instantly kill you without warning that's what they're going to do. You'll have to jump down to find out. And it can be, like, if there was even just a little bit more, like, vertical FOV. Like, if they went to the effort of, like, splitting the heads-up display to the bottom left and bottom right of the screen, then made it so that the canvas of the game can fill the entire screen, so that it just, you get a bit more up view, down view, left view, and right view. It wouldn't be anywhere near as big of a problem, but there are a couple of jumps in this game that aren't particularly leaps of faith, but there are absolutely some challenges where you're not going to get through them scot-free the first time, and I certainly didn't. So, if you're not a fan of like platforming challenges in your run and gun action games, you're probably going to want to avoid this one like the plague, because trust me, they can get really frustrating. Wait until you see the one that's related to all the bloody sliding walls that feels like the masochistic Mario castle from hell. You'll understand what I mean when you see it. But yes, there is a story, but it's not in the game, like, before you get to, like, certain points in the levels. And it's basically just, evil guy has army of robots, you probably need to go kill him. And thankfully the bosses themselves are actually fun to fight as well, and they're quite varied too. Like, you saw the, you'll be seeing the 2 cannons in the walls. You've already seen the giant robot with the box that hangs below it. You'll see the individual boxes. You'll see a robot army that you need to absolutely beat the shit out of, but they can absolutely beat the shit out of you. They've got a lot of different bosses with a lot of variety. They don't have much in the way of variety to their individual, like, attack patterns, but they also don't last too long for that to become a problem. So, yeah, I also like the boss fights too. It's mainly just the platforming challenges that really grind my gears, if I'm being honest with you. But that's a hardcore European platformer for you. That's just what they do. And outside of that, like, little annoying bit, I actually really enjoyed ULTRACORE. It was a lot of fun. The running and gunning is great. The weapons are satisfying to use. The enemies are very varied and explode very nicely. The levels are big with plenty of opportunities for exploration for resources, with tons of secrets. The overall just movement and, like, just general feel of the player character is great. And it's hard enough to make you want to come back, except for those platforming challenges. They can go suck a dick. Would I recommend it? Well, it's a bit tough, so if you're not particularly good at video games, I'd probably tell you to avoid it. But if you enjoy things like Cuphead, Dark Souls, Devil May Cry, I'm saying just, like, games that are just generally difficult to get a hang of, you'll probably enjoy ULTRACORE. It'll get you through a nice weekend. There's also some really tough trophies going on for it too. It's not like one of those Ratalaika ports where it's like, you know, play the game for 20 minutes, don't even finish it, we'll give you the platinum trophy anyway. There are some trophies that require you to get like 65% accuracy. Good fucking luck. There are also ones that require you to find every single collectible in the game. Good fucking luck. So, you know, you'll be here for a while if you want to get that sweet, sweet platinum. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's available for $20 US, which might be a little bit expensive for most people, considering that you could probably finish it in an hour and a half up to 2 hours if you knew what you were doing. But trust me, the first time through, you do not know what you're doing. It'll take you a fair bit longer than that to get used to all of it. And remember, those continues are limited. I'm going to let you watch the rest of this footage. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.